Just got back from City Park in Parkersburg. I'm I don't know if I'm living in zombie land or in the Matrix. I really don't know what this world is composed of. I know it's not fake. I know it's not a simulation, not in the literal sense, but people are so programmed. It's really hard to tell the difference whether you're living in a fake reality or a real reality. It really is. It's really amazing. People are programmed. And when I say programmed, it's like universally programmed. They're in a box and they don't even know what the box that they don't even see the walls or the box that they're in. They have no idea what's going on, how they're being controlled and manipulated, and they're incapable of even seeing the reality that somebody is controlling their thought patterns. How do you know? Well, when you see people on both sides of the aisle and they say the same programmed response, you know that those thoughts are not their own. People think that those thoughts are their own, but they'll say the same thing. You know, on one side you had the anti-war protesters, and then you had the other side that was the veterans and the biker gangs, and they were standing by the war memorial because in their mind they thought that the war memorial was going to be destroyed by the anti-war protesters. And but this was the interesting thing. There was an open mic. You could say what you want. It was supplied by the protesters. Okay. And so after listening to a few people talk, that was the whole reason I went to begin with, is because I wanted to maybe get a chance to talk about Hugh and talk about the truth of what was happening. It's interesting. My girls just opened the door downstairs and they didn't close it. So if you hear some television background noise, that's why. Don't know why they opened my door down there and then just left it open. But it's allowing a flood of TV noise to come up here. So one side gives their ideas, gives their theory, why they're there and why they don't like war. And it's really obvious. Okay, it's obvious why. What they're trying to say is just that they're unhappy that Trump is president. And the other side picked up on that, and that was evident. Okay, for which I did rebuttal them a little bit when it was my chance to speak, and I said, "Listen, you're being disingenuous." Okay, and I was the only one who was reasonable and not mad when I spoke. Everyone was angry at each other and yelling back and forth at each other, but I told him right up front that I'm right as close to the middle as anyone can be on the issue. I'm always against war, and except for in cases of self-defense. But going to Iraq and all that's not self-defense. Okay, this is no longer, and they'd have to understand what happened on 9/11. But I rebutted them and I said, listen, war is not just bad when you have a Republican president. Where was your war protest when when Bill Clinton was bombing the Christians in Bosnia? Where was your war protest when Obama continued, quote unquote, Bush's war, for 8 years in the Middle East? Why does it only matter when there's a Republican president? Well, no, that made the Republican side happy, but I wasn't done, because I told him the whole thing is about a pedophile group, okay, and it's about covering up the truth of what happened on 9/11. I said, all you have to do is look at the little hole on the Pentagon and see that little tiny hole at the very base of the Pentagon wasn't big enough for a full-sized aircraft. Obviously, that should give you a clue that something else is going on here. And of course, I'd mentioned a few other things, but the second that I get to the pedophile gangs, all of a sudden both sides are jumping up. Whoa, no, we can't have a conspiracy theory here. Programmed response on both sides immediately. Absolute brainwashing. Both sides not knowing or understanding that they're just programmed. When a million people say the same word and you always hear the same thing, that's proof that you're in a box. That's proof that you're programmed. So what you're telling me is that the only possibilities for who could be right are either the Republicans or the Democrats, but nobody else could possibly be right. I didn't hear it on Fox News or on CNN, because we know that, if we're on this side, then Fox News is lying. If we're on this side, then we know CNN is lying. But since it's on neither channel, okay, then it must not be true, because we know that our side's telling us the truth. No way that they could be controlled by the same entities. But then when you understand the truth of Hugh Squire, you begin to know that both sides are run by the same pedo gangs. And to dismiss this truth and to call it a conspiracy theory really testifies to the ignorance, because Hugh Squires is still alive and he's not theorizing anything in his head. He's telling you what happened as he lived it. How can that be a conspiracy? If I tell you that I went to the grocery store today, and I did, it's not a theory that I went to the grocery store. I really did live it. I was there. And if Hugh tells you that he was abducted at 4 years old by pedo gangs, that's not a theory. Okay? When he tells you that the priest that he confessed to is the same priest in the Warren report that blamed, I hate it when names, blamed Oswald for the killing of Kennedy, and it's the same guy. That's not a theory. He's telling you what really happened. Hey, I was there, when he tells you that, gosh, and I really hate the fact that I can't think fast on my feet when I'm in these rallies. And then and even now, it's like I know the things that Hugh says, but it's just like I wish like crazy I had a better memory. It really bothers me that I don't. But Hugh, he rented from one of the people that were responsible for Jimmy Hoffa's murder. I mean, he's in the middle of all these things. His family member, like close family, someone related to someone he was married to, killed and shot Jimmy Hoffa. And he knows where Jimmy Hoffa's buried and tells you that it's on his property. Okay, this is not a theory. He was there. If your truck gets blown up on the day Jimmy Hoffa is murdered and the FBI detains you, and yet it's not in any sort of Warren Commission reports, you got to start asking yourself a question: why are they covering this stuff up? Hugh is not a theory. He lived it. I mean, it's the greatest rabbit hole on earth, but it's not a theory. He's telling you from personal experience, and that's what people don't seem to understand, is because we're just so programmed, so much in a box, that we can't imagine that anything that's not either on our side, and if I was wrong, then the other side surely would say it, right? Because, if Fox News ain't saying it, and if I was wrong, well, sure enough, CNN would be rebuttaling what I'm saying. But if you learn the truth of Hugh Squires, you understand that they're controlled by the same entities. Hugh Squire used to run Fox News before Rupert Murdoch did, more or less. But Anderson Cooper was the name of the pedophiles, and in this industry, they mark you by your name. You mark your competitors and the people you don't like by your names or by some attribute of them that you don't like. In this case, they marked Anderson Cooper of CNN because Anderson was one of the pedophiles that abducted him when he was 5 years old, and Cooper was one of the rapists that raped one of his wives. Oh my gosh. Anderson Cooper. That's why you have Anderson Cooper. And that's far from, you can sit there and look at, just go look through his videos and pictures, and occasionally you'll see that it must be, I don't know if it's Facebook, I don't know if it's some government entity or some hacker, but occasionally his pictures will get where you can't see them, and I don't know who's doing it or how, and then they'll be back the next day. So weird things happen, and only on his account, that don't happen on anybody else. Okay, it never does. Videos will disappear and then they'll be back the next day. It doesn't even make sense what happens on his site, because it doesn't happen to anybody else. It's really, really weird. But somebody's doing it, right? But so if you don't see something, go back and look the next day. It might be back. And I'm telling the truth. I've seen it happen. But go through and look at skimpy pictures of Janine Pirro on there when she was in shape and young, and was sending him letters wanting to date him. I mean, come on. He's telling the truth. He's got a lot of history, and you really need to take the time to understand it. But when I go to these protests and I try to tell them the truth, well, they didn't hear it from CNN, and they didn't hear it from Fox, so it can't be true. You see what I'm saying? Because what my mentality is that if I'm wrong about something, then surely the people on the other side must surely would pick it up. But if neither side says it, then it must not even exist. It can't even be real. And I really feel like I'm in outer space. Now, I told these people, I said, listen, I said, if he wants to put this information on his site, I said, President Trump will hear it by tomorrow. This is important. But these people would not consider what I was saying seriously. And as soon as they took the mic, I don't care to put in, I don't care to give Hugh anything that, that was said, to see if he even wants to put it on there, forget them. They don't, if they don't want to listen to the truth, well, I don't really care to try to get their point. They're not even smart enough to understand what's going on. And it's unfortunate. And I know, because they're in the box. They don't know they're in a box. I can't really get mad at them. Hugh does get mad at him because he's put up with this his whole life. Imagine you got 4 wives murdered, okay? And they're dumping dead kids on your body, dead kids on your property. Shot at you, poisoned you, all this stuff. Yeah, he has a right to get angry, but I'm not in that case. So when I see what's going on, I understand the mind programming, and so I'm not mad at them. I'm not angry at a tomato because it's red or a hot pepper because it's hot. It just is what it is. And if you've grown up in the Matrix, you don't even know you're in it. A lot of what Hugh says is it's easy to resonate with me because as an INTJ, we're on a little bit closer wavelength, if you will. An Asperger level can see patterns really well. An INTJ sees patterns. Okay, these are just personality types. That's all this is. Okay, I'm not claiming to be a genius, but he really is a genius. He doesn't even want me to tell you how he proved it to me, so I won't. But mark it down. He's absolutely a genius. Okay, he's what you would call a savant. Okay, and I'm not even going to try to prove that to you because he asked me not to. Because if you're too obvious about it, government agencies will want to use you. So I don't want to say too much about how he proved it to me, but you can rest assured that you're dealing with a genius here when you're listening to. And if something he says doesn't resonate with you right away, it's probably over your head at that particular moment, but it doesn't mean it has to be forever. It just, you have to be patient and dissect it. He's talking in several levels above what most of us do and think, and in patterns that are perfectly logical, but they may not be to you. Now, an INTJ or an Asperger's person and several other Asperger's people have caught on to what he was saying and could easier and could dissect, and I'm one of them, so I could dissect what he says better than most people. But that's not to say that I'm particularly smart or intelligent. It just means that I'm on the same wavelength. I'm very average on the intelligence, and I understand that. So please don't misunderstand having Asperger's or INTJ with being super intelligent. We're not all. It just, it's a personality type more than it is an intelligence quotient or anything. But at the same time, the ability to see patterns and the ability to dissect things like this make it easier for us to understand that when somebody's telling the truth. And Hugh's telling you the truth. And we could see the genius in it more easily than most people. Okay. It's really hard to prove that, though. I mean, because how are you going to prove it when, if you're not going to see it? You have to be willing to take the time to really dissect it and to spend the necessary time it takes to really go through the truth and to go through the history and to go through the pictures and the videos, get a piece of paper and write it down. You see, what's going to happen is in the future, when Hugh's not here anymore and can't testify in the Warren Commission anymore, or something like that, or, testify that in such a way that it'll put a president in jail in court, or some congressperson in jail, or some senator in jail, or some group of pedophiles in jail, when he can't do that anymore because he's dead, all of a sudden his story is going to explode. There's going to be a lot of people that are going to really wish that they had listened to Hugh. Because all of a sudden they're going to say, oh, there's that goofball in Ohio, that dorky little kid with glasses, not a kid, but dorky little guy with glasses. He had it right all along. How did all the rest of us miss it? And listen, I'm not out to make money. So, I'm not charging you for anything and I'm not selling anything. I do have a book, but it's not about Hugh. There's one little chapter that has a little bit about Hugh on it, but my book's not about Hugh, and it's not even out yet. I wrote that about mounds, Indian mounds, and how they help tell you the size of the Earth and the moon. It's really profound. Hey, Pete, how you doing? But it's still at the copyright office right now. But I'm not even trying to, I'm not trying to sell you anything. So I'm just here to tell the truth because I recognize it as true. And I told Hugh also, I said, Hugh, listen, I said, and hi, Bobby, by the way. I didn't mean to say hi just to Pete, not to Bobby. But I told Hugh, I said, if you were to get ticked off at me tomorrow, or doesn't like something I say, I said, listen to me. The difference between me and most people is that I'm still going to say the truth that I know that you're telling because I believe that it's true. And that's the only reason that I say what I say. I won't say something if I don't really think that it's honestly true. And if I do think it's true, it doesn't matter to me who likes it and who doesn't. So if somebody is personally angry at me, it really doesn't matter. I recently came out about how Zach really wasn't listening to Hugh and how Zach Hubbard was not given a place for Hugh's truth. Okay. And it occurred to me that Zach wasn't interested in objective truth. He was just out to make money. Okay. And I understood that. And I promise you, one of these days, he's just going to disappear with a whole bunch of money. All the truthers do that. Okay. All of them. And it's just like the 9/11 truther people that Hugh stayed with. The main group of the 9/11 truthers, Hugh actually stayed at their house for a while. And he was there, I think he said 6 months or something like that. And the family there that's in charge, they took all kinds of money from donations on their website. And then all they did was just take it and buy a really big house. Well, their gay brother comes on and says, no, don't tell the truth of Hugh. Isn't that interesting? Because all of his problems are gays and pedophiles and biker gangs. And there were biker gangs at our rally today. Well, a gang. I think one of the more nicer ones, though. This is a small town. Not Hell's Angels or anything, but they're still brainwashed and still have the same mentality. But so anyway, Zach is just another person who's just making money. He's giving you numbers, but not really leading you to any particular solution. Not really telling you the absolute truth of what happened. He's not going to ever get to Hugh Squire and tell you the real truth of 9/11. Okay, he might say our government did it a little bit, but he's not going to be real specific. It's not going to call any names. Why? He's just in it for the money, and that's obvious. It's really interesting that his name is Hubbard, and he lives in a town in Portland, Oregon, where the Scientologists, who was started by L. Ron Hubbard, have such a big following. I have to wonder, is there a connection there? Is there, is it genetic? Is it, how far away is he from L. Ron Hubbard in history, and in his ancestry? I really don't know. I do know that he's lied about some things in his past because we've looked up his, we paid money. Well, somebody paid money, not me. I won't tell you who, and he hasn't given me permission to tell you exactly what we found, but I can tell you that he's lying about his past. I can tell you that truthfully. We looked at a report, looked up, what do you call that? When you pay for to get the background information, background check, I guess. I don't know. Maybe that's not the right word, but you could pay money on the internet. Somebody did and gave it to me, and some of the things some of the things that Hubbard is saying about his past, he's lying about. That right there is very suspicious. But he's no different than, so when he disappears with all the money, he's going to be just like the 9/11 truthers. Okay. He's going to be just like other internet groups that say they're going to help people and then they never do. And they just disappear with the money. That's just what happens because they're not really about the truth itself. And that's what's going on at the rally. Okay. Programmed people think that they're really helping the world because they're going to come out against war, but only when the president I don't like is in power. and is talking about war. But I can promise you that the anti-war protesters, if Nancy Pelosi were president tomorrow, and Nancy Pelosi ordered an all-out nuclear war on Iran, I promise you that those protesters would not even consider the possibility of a war protest. And you all know it's true. And I told them that. And it's sad that there's so much in a box that they really think that they're doing the world good, but they're just part of a con. And then the other side, they're no better. Okay, they want war, okay, because Trump wants war. But they say they're against war. But if the Democrats wanted a war tomorrow, they would not be for war for real, and they would really try to stop it. And it's really, really sad what's going on. And neither of them can see that they're in a box and can't think for themselves, and are issuing programmed responses for everything. Because if you saw 10 million people do this, you would still see the same responses from all of them. That's what happens when a person can't think for themselves. The person who's doing the thinking has put the thoughts in them. And that's why you can see somebody in different parts of the country, whether it's Maine or Florida or Washington or California, or Texas or Hawaii or Alaska, and they're all going to have the same two answers. They're going to have one version or the other. How is that even possible if people are thinking for themselves? And when somebody does say the truth, like I did, and I come up and I tell you that the hole in the Pentagon wasn't big enough for an airplane, and that's obvious. You can look at it, and it didn't knock down any of the poles in front of it. But it's a jumbo jet and has big old wings, and it didn't even make any wing marks in the Pentagon. That's what I said. I said, something's going on. Something's fishy here. Now, because it benefited the anti-war protesters, they didn't say anything at the time. Okay, because at that particular sentence, it sounded to them like I was just bashing Republicans because they all know George Bush was president on 9/11. So if I made it sound like the government did it, it was okay right at that particular moment. Isn't that insane? How people think? But when I started saying that it's all connected to covering up the pedophile gangs, conspiracy theory, both sides were throwing out the C word immediately. And the guy came for the mic and said, no, we're not going to have conspiracy theories. But I can't give you any conspiracy theories about Hugh Squire, because Hugh Squire is not a theory. He's a real person living today who can say, I was abducted by the families of governors, real governors, okay, like Wallace, Long, and daggone it, Osborne, okay, Anderson, families of governors and musicians, okay, and they did terrible things to him, and that his real twin brother was murdered and thrown in the field where the airplane supposedly hit in Pennsylvania on 9/11. That's not a theory. He lived it. It's a personal testimony. It's an eyewitness account. Okay, a theory is something that's theoretical, something that you postulate might have happened. It's not a theory if you saw it. Okay, it's not a theory if you were there. It's not a theory if they blow up and dynamite your truck, and then detain you for the murder of Jimmy Hoffa, and then no one ever interviews you, gets your side of the story, or puts it in a book ever since Jimmy Hoffa. He's buried on his property. He says, I can tell you where he's buried. That's not a theory. And, they probably knew that, and they probably moved it since then, So somebody will come out and say, look, we found it. Yeah, well, they moved it 10 years ago or something, but, his place was surrounded one time by the police, and he held them off with one gun, but they didn't shoot him, even despite the fact that all the police were there. This really did happen to Hugh, because the gun that he held, they didn't want going into the police lockup or whatever they call that, when they hold evidence, wherever they hold evidence, they didn't want that gun going in because it was the gun that killed JFK. Oh my gosh. And if somebody makes that claim and then says that the police are part of the pedophile networks and some of the people that killed JFK, and so they were covering up their evidence right there, and they couldn't even shoot it at Hugh, even though he had a gun, and all those police surround him and couldn't do anything about it, and then he's not even in jail for it or anything. Come on, what's going on here? Um, and you make those claims, and you make those claims against the police force, and you tell the police daily on the internet who they are and what they did, and then if you tried that, some bad things would happen to you. But he does it every day. He calls out the murderers by name. He calls out the people who did this to him. Nothing ever happens. He calls out real police. He calls out real FBI. Calls out the president, and nothing ever happens to him. Why? If you did that, you'd be in trouble. So you need to ask yourself a question. How, what's going on here? It's not hard to look through his evidence, though. It's not hard. It's not hard to go through and see on Facebook. It is a little bit time consuming. But it's really sad that we live in such a society where people cannot think. They literally can't. And you cannot get their attention. I was the only sane person talking up there today, and it was outside at a park. So I guess I was the only sane person talking at the microphone, and I was real nice to both sides, and I talked to both sides as long as they would talk to me, but they're so full of vitriol and anger. It's just like, if you don't agree with 100% of what they say, that you're not human to them. And so both sides do that to me. Because I'm going to tell the real truth, which is the truth of Hugh and history, not what CNN or Fox News has programmed both sides to automatically spill out hypnotic suggestion that they've given you to just automatically repeat every last thing that you've been said verbatim. Everything you've ever heard, and repeat it verbatim. That's what they do in colleges. They get you to repeat everything that you've been taught, and you never have to think for yourself. You never have to. In fact, you're not even allowed to think for yourself. You think for yourself, and you'll lose tenure. The professor will flunk you. You're not allowed to think for yourself. Doctors aren't allowed to think for themselves, or they'll lose their medical license. Lawyers are not allowed to think for themselves and really think about the history of their country, or how every lawyer in America once used to study out of, what was that? Blackwell's Commentary on the Law. If they went back to that, it was taken out like in the 40s or 50s as they started really getting into the social engineering of our country, and that was removed from the lawyers. But it used to be that every lawyer studied from that book. Now, a person who thinks for himself today, a lawyer that was training or thinking for himself, might go back and look at that, but they never do, because they never have a chance to think. If they did, they'd probably lose their law license. You're just supposed to follow precedent, or you go with the flow. And that's how everybody thinks. Just go with the flow. Just go with, don't stir anything, don't make any waves. If I'm not right, then the other side must be right about something, so they would catch it, and then I would know. No, that means you're in a box. If all you can see is your side and the opposite side, maybe you need to think outside of a box. You need to go define where the parameters of that box are. Let's go locate the walls. Let's go see where it is in my mind that I have failed to see where I'm thinking for myself, because we're all part of the programming, because we all have to start out as babies that don't know anything, so people teach us stuff. And so we need to seek out for ourselves and learn where they got everything that they got, and you have to ask questions for yourself, but nobody ever does. Everybody just seems to be content with, okay, this is what I was taught. So, and how often do you hear that? Well, I was taught. As if that matters. if you're only saying it because I was taught, oh my gosh, that means you never thought about the issue one time in your life. But how many times do you always hear people constantly say, well, I was taught, and that's their rebuttal. Well, they must be right and the other person's wrong because that's what I was taught. And that's what happens when people are watching CNN and Fox News is they're just being taught. They're being programmed and they don't know it. But there's one side that is overall, and they're both covering the real truth. They can both misdirect you and play politics at the same time and make you think that they don't like each other, but they do. Rush Limbaugh was a Oxycontin dealer. Okay. You think that he's a good person. I thought he was a good person. Listened to him for years. But he dealt drugs. Okay. He's a drug dealer. So he's no better than any other drug dealer. You think he's telling you the truth, but a big red flag came up to me one year when I discovered that he had Elton John, okay, Sir Gay Elton John, perform at his wedding. Oh, big red flag. Those are the people that he hangs out with? Oh my gosh. So he's there to use his position, but hides the real truth that it did Rush Limbaugh ever tell the truth of Hugh Squire or what really happened on 9/11? No, not once. He can play politics, make you think he's a good guy by attacking the evil Democrats, and made me think it for many years, and never once tell the truth. Isn't that crazy how the world really works? You know, Rush Limbaugh was a drug dealer, and this is something that that Hugh taught me, Sean Hannity. Okay, we were talking about this last night, but what happens in the publishing industry is that, and this is really hard to explain, especially when I don't have a background in it. So you need to try to understand that I'm not the person given this information originally, so it doesn't make as much sense to me as it does to Hugh that's saying it. Okay, so try to understand. You gotta understand I might not be saying it perfectly. Try to understand that as I try my best to explain this. Okay, but in the publishing industry, they will name people as sort of a metaphor, I guess, for they'll put for their business. Okay, so Sean Hannity comes from the business Sean's Back Door, which was a big gay bar up in northern Ohio. Okay, and I understand that it's not a real clear connection to everybody. Hugh understands it perfectly. I'm not perfectly clear on it. Okay, so you got to understand that I try to explain things as best I can, but you'll see this over and over and over again, that the publishers use their businesses, and they create characters inside of what you see on TV based on that. So Sean Hannity is there because of the name Sean's Back Door. Okay, doesn't mean he was a gay person or he was a part of it, but just understand. But that's why you never hear Sean Hannity ever tell the truth of 9/11, and you never will. Okay, because it's the people who are controlling it who are part of the gay pedophile agenda. I understand that's not perfectly clear. I get it. Okay, I get it. It is right, and it makes good sense. But I understand that that's not real clear to everybody. Okay, but listen to Hugh explain it a little bit better. And that's why you should go and listen to and watch as many of his videos and chronicle them and keep them, because they're going to be really valuable someday. As we speak right now, Coast to Coast has vans and buses all over his former property where those people were murdered. Why do you think Coast to Coast is there? Premier Network, okay? Because as soon as Hugh dies, they're going to run with his story. But right now, they can't run with his story because his testimony could put a lot of people in jail. But they're going to be clamoring over his story one day. So why don't you get the facts straight now while he's still alive and go ask him some questions, and don't be a butthole about it, okay? See so many people, and it's just like, he don't have time for that, And why would you? Why would you want to sit there and deal with people that just keep asking the same dumb questions? Real legitimate, honest questions he'll answer, but if you come on and just accusing him of something, he's not going to listen to you. And why would he? I mean, he's already had four wives, fiancés murdered. He's not ready to put up with crap like stupid questions that people ask. And who would be? And it's really interesting. Well, no, I'm not going to get into that. So Coast to Coast is right there on his property. And they're going to run with the story. I guarantee you there's going to be books made. You're going to see it on TV someday. And then you're going to, oh yeah, Greg with the glasses from Ohio that made a few videos. How did he know this years in advance? Well, it's not because I had special knowledge, just because I recognized the pattern and I got to know Hugh. Okay, that's all it is. You should be able to recognize a pattern if you're good at gematria. Okay, that's why I recognize the truth of gematria like almost immediately. It kind of stunned me for about 5 or 6 hours, and I had to sit back and just like awe about it for a minute and really postulate it. But almost immediately I knew it was true. Okay. So I poured in a lot of time to get to know it. Well, Hugh puts all those numbers together with all these murders all the time and says that they've murdered his people by a code. What code do you think he's talking about? Yeah. And he's very much aware of it. So if you want to see how, and they did it all, they'd murdered his wives by the 9/11 code, and it's really obvious. And we've already made some videos. Go back and look through my videos. You'll see it. I think, was it on The Greatest Con on Earth Part 1, maybe? I think was the one we talked about it. I think. Don't quote me on that. So if you can recognize a pattern, you'll be able to recognize the truth of Hugh. Hopefully really easy. Should be obvious. Even if you don't understand it. But try to understand when you're talking to somebody as smart as he is. And I do mean that he's smart. He's what you might call a savant, okay? He can do some pretty amazing things, and I'm not going to get into it very much because it wouldn't be good to let people know that too much, But he may say things that seem like they are coded, and they're coded in a way, but they're coded because they're a pattern in his head. And an Asperger's person like me, we see that. Okay, we see that there's a code to what he's saying, but how do you explain it? It's like trying to explain, if you're an artist and you want to explain how you can draw a picture, it's really hard to explain, or to explain to a blind guy how you see colors. What is a color to a blind guy? How do you even put those into words? I don't know. I see the patterns that Hugh's talking about. Okay, and about all the murders and about all the things that are going on in his life and around him, and it's obvious to me, but I don't always know how to explain it real well. But some of you could dissect it, and if you're good at gematria, you should be able to see the patterns. So that's all I can tell you. I can't say it in a way that makes more clear sense than that. And hi, Kirk, and hi, John. So don't dismiss what Hugh says just because, gosh, he's using run-on sentences. Trust me, every last word that he's saying really does have a meaning and is really deep, and it's connected to so much history it'll blow your mind once you start to unravel it. Now, he throws a comment out on Facebook, and I promise you it's like a giant ball, a rubber band ball. And you got to start taking off the rubber bands, okay, one at a time. You just got to, and you think it's just a package deal. But every last word and syllable that he's saying there is deep, like layers and layers and layers deep. And you to understand that, you really have to put in the time. It's not going to be, I just immediately understood exactly what he said. You're going to start with, I recognize a pattern. Now I really need to look into it. But I promise you need to get this now, because there's going to come a day pretty soon when Hugh's not here, and you're going to see this on Coast to Coast. You're going to see this You're going to have the liars like um, Alex Jones come out and talk about it. You're going to see the wrestler from Minnesota, Jesse Ventura, talk about it. It's going to be everywhere. You're going to see books made on it. Okay. But they can't do that now, because if they did that now, there would be trials, there would be court cases, and people in the government and the pedophile gangs, people like Osborne, who run the sex crimes division of the FBI, who's related to the rapist that killed him, people like that, that's going to tie. Not only would they go to jail, but it would tie everything back to the murder of JFK. Oh, and now your government did the murder of JFK. Oh, and it's also going to connect to 9/11. And then you're going to find out that your government connected to 9/11. So you're not going to hear a peep from anybody who's profited from the law or from the theft of bottom line, which is all of them. Okay. You're not going to hear that anywhere until he's dead. But once he's dead, you're going to hear it everywhere. So get ahead of the curve and really learn the truth. Why don't you hear the truth of Hugh Squires? Well, how would you hear it from people who've benefited from the murders and from the deaths and from the thefts? They want to put you in a box. They're all part of the pedophile gangs, just like Rush Limbaugh, the drug dealer, just like Sean Hannity from Sean's Back Door. Now, he's not literally from there, but I mean, the publishers use that as a metaphor. That's why that's where Anderson Cooper got his name, from the pedophiles Anderson and the rapist Cooper, related to the murders of their competitor Hugh, from the murderer's name, Cooper, and the rapist murderer Cooper and the pedophile Anderson. Okay. They combine that name to mark against Hugh, and they're making fun of him in a sense. Okay, that's how publishing works. That's really weird, because we're not used to thinking like that. Normal, decent people don't think like that, but that's how they think, and that's what they do. And the media is full of that kind of stuff, and most of it has something to do, because I mean, they're all in on it except for Hugh, because he was the victim of it. So he climbs the ladder pretty high, becomes an ASCAP publisher. Oh, and then one day they realize, oh, maybe he could start telling the truth, and it's going to lead back to all this pedophiles and the murder of JFK and how the priest that he used to confess to, he testified against Oswald and the Warren Commission, and this is going to get a whole lot of us in trouble. Oh, but they're all in on it together, with drug dealer Rush Limbaugh. And we don't see it because we think our side's right. Okay. We really do trust these people. But the one person who was as high as they were with ASCAP, being an ASCAP publisher like Michael Jackson, all of a sudden he was the victim now. And so they all mark him. Well, you're going to mark your competitors and your enemies, not your friends, right? Well, sometimes they may mark their competitors, but in more friendly ways. But to them, he's a threat. You understand that? He's a big old threat, because he could expose them all. He could testify against them in court. He was there. He saw it. Okay, and it was his civil rights case that was blown up in the Pentagon. Think about that for a while. So it's not crazy to go to one of these protests like I did today and say that 9/11 happened, and the reason that we're having a war in the first place is to cover up for the murders and the theft and the pedophilia. Oh, that's a conspiracy theory, they say. No, it's not a conspiracy theory. It's based on fact. It's just you were put in a box and you think Rush Limbaugh, and if you don't think Rush Limbaugh is telling you the truth, then you think Rachel Maddow is telling you the truth. But both of them are liars. Both of them are run by the same pedophile gangs and the drug dealers like Rush Limbaugh. And that's the truth of your country. So it's okay for me to go up there and understand that I'm telling the truth, even if they're too stupid to get it. too brainwashed, too far in the box. I can only put the truth out there and hope that it rings to somebody's ears later on when they catch on a little bit of something else or go, wait, I remember I heard somebody else say that one. Oh, I remember that protest. That guy we all thought was crazy. He said something. And I was the only person that wasn't upset while I was there. Everybody else was just yelling at each other. And I was the calm, rational person, but they're going to call what I'm saying here crazy because I'm talking about something that's so deep that they don't understand it. And you know what can I say? I don't fault a blind person for being blind or a deaf person for being deaf. But I would fault any of you that are hearing this if you don't take it and really research it. And then you come out and say something stupid. And there's already been a whole lot of people, even people that are my friends and should know better, come out, and relatives too, come out and talk against what I'm saying, but they haven't put 5 minutes of real effort into really learning it. And this is something you're not going to learn in 5 minutes, I promise you. And I don't really care. I don't care. I'm not selling anything. I'm not like the 9/11 truther community. I'm not selling you coffee cups. I will have a book for sale, pretty soon, whenever the copyright people gets my stuff together. But it's not about you. I mean, one chapter says a little bit of a story, but it's it's not about that. I'm telling you the truth because I think it's true, and that's the only reason. I don't expect that book to sell. I expect it to cost me money. I'm just saying it because I always wanted to write a book. Okay, I'm seriously. I will. Maybe I'll write Hugh's book too. I don't know. But I'm. We'll. I probably shouldn't say that. The last guy got killed. They killed Jim Marrs. Offered to write his book, and they murdered him. So anyway, and he's got pictures of him there with Jim Marrs. And they'll tell you Jim Marrs died. I think it'll say it's a heart attack or something. Offered to write Hugh's book, so put two and two together because his whole life is like that. So I guess that's it. I mean, what else can I say about it? Went to this protest and I saw people who were just mind programmed, just like hundreds of millions of other people. And we're all programmed, and so I can't say that like they're programmed and I never was, or I'm sure that I still have elements of programming in my head that I have to discover, because each of us have to understand, oh, have I ever really thought about this one particular issue, or is that just the response that was put into me? And I think it's true, but it's really not my own thoughts. It's just the way I've always heard it. Really think about what I just said there, because what I just said there is really, really powerful, and it can free your mind from just becoming somebody else's narrative, somebody else's pattern, and being part of the mind control. Every day you have to ask yourself, why am I saying the things that I'm saying? Did I hear that on TV? Was that just part of my conditioning? Are you going to be like, well, I always heard, or my mom and dad told me? Well, is the only reason you're saying something is because you always heard and because your mom and dad told you? That's what makes it right? And yet everybody says that. Oh my gosh. You have 10 people in a room and they'll all say, well, I was told when I was a kid. Who cares? Why did your mom and dad say that? Well, my mom and dad would never lie to me. Well, does that mean they're right because they would never lie to you? People think they're saying the truth all the time, but they never analyzed where they got their truth. This is why a kid who's born into a headhunter tribe will become a headhunter. He'll never question it. Well, is it logical, or is it good to hunt heads? Or is there some better life that I could live? Those thoughts will never cross his mind. Mom and dad told me it was good to hunt heads, so I'm a headhunter. And that's how all of us are. And all of us are born in this world knowing nothing. So other people's job, or other people put their thoughts and their programs and their ideas into our head. And society and television and movies. We can say, well, the movies didn't make that person kill anybody. Yeah, yes and no. Okay, they didn't directly grab a movie didn't jump out and grab his hand and make him kill it, but it gave him the suggestions in his head uh, over amount of time, and he thought his thoughts were his own, and he really did. But he didn't know that he was being programmed by, society. And it wasn't just the movies. I'm sure there was more to it. The murderer killed somebody because he got those ideas from somewhere. They didn't come from his head. Generally speaking, he probably never had a single thought his whole life. And the vast majority, I'd say, if I had to guess, 99.99% of the people that run the world have never had an original thought. And it's sad. Doctors, lawyers, politicians, they're all just running off of somebody else's program. Well, who's the guy creating the program? Well, it's not really that simple. It's just a development of society that continues to go. There are manipulators and movers, but it's not some Illuminati. Okay, it's not just 3 or 4 people meeting in a room that decide for everybody else. It's deeper than that. The smarter people make the program for everybody else. The people that we call the Illuminati, there is no real Illuminati. Okay, not really. Okay, there's no real actual Illuminati. The Freemasons are not running the world. Okay, there are people in all kinds of levels of government that are Freemasons, but they're not all meeting as Freemasons and saying, we as Freemasons need to run the world. That's not happening. That's an illusion and a lie. That's being given to you by Alex Jones, who used to live right next to Hugh and who won't tell you any truth about what really happened on 9/11. He got Trump elected, but he helped to get Trump elected, but he's not telling you the truth. How are you going to have an original thought? Well, you really have to ask yourself every day. It's society. It's the smart people. It's the people who are smarter than me who are making the world happen, and they're the ones that seem to us they're the Illuminati. They're not the Illuminati. Okay, they're different groups. They're college professors, or most of them running the world. Okay, colleges get together and those people design a lot of the curriculum. Okay. But it's also a lot of publishers. You think about that's why the Queen comes to America and visits Bourne Publishing. And then you get the movie Bourne Publishing, or the Bourne Conspiracy. Okay. Put it all together. Okay. They really do mark their movies and their characters like this. And they mark Hugh all the time. Okay. He's the Rain Man, he's the beautiful mind. He was 53 because he's born in 1953. Walt Disney told him that he made Herbie the Love Bug with number 53 because that was his birthday. Walt Disney literally told him that. Okay, because that's how it works in that business. I know we're not used to thinking like that, but that's really what goes on. And that was a friendly gesture from Walt Disney. Walt Disney was actually a really nice guy, Hugh says. He used to know him. So where are we going to get original thoughts? It's going to come when you just take the time to constantly ask yourself, why do I say what I say? Why do I think what I think? And quit thinking and be humble enough to realize that most of your thoughts are not your own. And whenever you react to something, automatically you're not thinking on your own. Anytime that you're emotionally disturbed, you're not thinking your own thoughts. You're having a programmed reaction course through you, even if you think you're the one doing it, and you're not. You're not the one doing it. Because if you're reacting emotionally, you're running on a program that's already installed, and it's on default at that moment. And that's why it's dangerous to have a lot of women in government, okay, and in places of leadership and authority, okay. Women are just wired to run more emotionally like that. I really don't care if they like it or not. It doesn't matter. Believe me, I have 3 daughters. They run on emotion. It's not just, you're not being a, what do you call it, bigoted or whatever they want to call it. That's not the case. It's just reality, okay? Men like boobs and girls run on emotion. I mean, some things are just real. It's just, I mean, reality is reality. I mean, you can't deny it. And that doesn't mean that a woman can't separate herself from her emotions and become better at it, just like you can. Okay. Women are not inferior by any stretch of the imagination or second class or anything like that. And the Muslims will tell you that they are, and a lot of Southern Baptists. Hugh always corrects me every time I say the Muslims to that. He always says, yeah, well, there's a lot of Southern Baptists do the same thing. Really think they're bigger than their women. And that's not true. Okay. That's not true. But they are wired instinctively to go to emotion first, but they can improve and they can think things through and separate from their emotions just like you can. But their first instinct is going to be emotional response. But the fact is, most people, period, most men also have that emotional response. They're not thinkers. And you see it in the protests. You just see people just automatically working out the programming in the society around them. They never ask themselves one time why they believe what they believe. Is what I say the result of my own research or the result of somebody else's research? How do I know that person's telling me the truth? Who runs that person? What a world we live in. A chaotic world of programmed, robotic people. And don't get angry at them, because if you're angry, you're emotionally controlled. I talk to them just like I'm talking right now in the same volume. Now you can choose on purposely to become emotional after you've thought through what you're really gonna say. You can really think it through, and you can choose to use emotion to stress a perfect point, and that's okay. There's nothing wrong with that, as long as your thoughts have already done it in advance. But if you're reacting to a crowd yelling at you, that's why I wasn't upset when anybody was yelling at me from either side, and they were both yelling at me, because in all honesty, I was the only sane person there. And I'm not saying that because I'm lifting myself up. I'm just being real. Because I'm the only person there that has really thought through the whole issues on my own. I had to vote for Trump last time, but I'm not for Trump, because I'm not for. But if it comes, and if this time it comes between him and Peter Buttigieg, yeah, I'm going to vote for Trump again, or all the ones on the Democratic side are just completely nuts. So I would happily vote third party if there was third party or an independent person that was better. On an individual basis, but I'm not for either side. I'm for individual issues, and that's how everyone needs to be. They need to quit choosing a side, and they need to start choosing an issue. If you're going to be against war, don't just be against war when Donald Trump is president, and next time when George Bush is president, and next time when the next Republican is president. Be against war because you don't want to see people killed. And how do you know that they don't care about people getting killed? Because they don't care about the dead. Because as soon as you mention pedophiles hurting people, they don't care. They don't care about the dead people all around them. They don't care about the dead people in our society right now, in our own community right here in Parkersburg. They don't care about those dead people. And when I make videos about it, I'm a crazy conspiracy guy, and like Elliot Ness said, I'm going to call her Elliot Ness because you told me to call her Elliot Ness, but her name's Emily Nestor. She goes on. She makes a podcast, and a lot of her podcasts is mile marker 181. She says I'm the monster staring back in the void, because I used the numbers to show that somebody actually killed this person by a thought out plan, which is real. You can't deny that. Somebody really did kill somebody in our town by a gematria code, and it's real obvious that they did. So I'm the monster because I told the truth, and all they want to do is make a bunch of money and go to a bunch of true crime broadcasts and all that stuff, and make a bunch of money, or be famous or whatever, or they'll probably write some books about it, or I don't know what she's going to do, but They've never had an original thought. They don't care about the dead people around here. They say they do. But if somebody says, well, I'm on your side, let's see if we can find out who's really doing it. Oh, you're conspiracy theory. Yeah, okay. Yeah, well, who's making the money and who's not? Where's the conspiracy? Follow the dollars. Who's getting famous and who's not? Yeah, yeah, yeah. I'm real evil because I offered to help. Yeah, but these protesters. They don't care about the dead people in our community. How in the world do we think they really care about war? No, they're being tools. They're being manipulated and used by one side of a political spectrum. Yeah, you're going to tell me you care about war, but you want to kill innocent, murdered children? It's about abortion. You're for abortion, but you're against war. Really? What a bunch of liars! What a bunch of criminals! Really? What a bunch of programmed robots! And and you've heard me come on here before, and I've made emotional, passionate speeches before against how I really hate taxes and things. But I do it on purpose. Man, I hate taxes. And I've thought through these issues for a long time, and I really do want to get people to feel what I feel. There's nothing wrong with using emotion, but it can't be a reaction. And yeah, well, I probably screw it up. So, of course, we all. But the best thing, society is best when we think for ourselves and we don't react, because then we're thinking with our own minds, not with somebody else's mind. Well, I'm going to stop it here. Thanks for watching. And if you're watching on Bow and Arrow, please like, share, and subscribe.